I want to start off by potentially annoying you. As a series, I don't love Metal Gear Solid. In fact, most of my opinions on MGS run counter to the fandom of the series. I like Raiden in MGS2, I prefer playing Twin Snakes to MGS1, and honestly I feel the Psycho Mantis fight is more cumbersome than impressive. Don't get me wrong, I'm far from hating the series. Metal Gear Solid 3 is probably one of the most impressive and interesting games, both in terms of the series, but also that they pulled it off in the PS2. Some simple stealth design choices were pioneered by MGS, and even more minute details still remain exclusive to this series. My issue's always been the story of MGS always seems to have priority over the basic mechanics, and the series didn't really click until MGS 4. And on top of that, Peace Walker is the only game in the franchise I've actually revisited for playthroughs. Until this game.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Metal Gear Solid 5 is for me not just my favorite game in the series, but one of my favorite games of this generation. Players' first real taste of Metal Gear Solid 5 was in that of Ground Zeroes, a prologue to the Phantom Pain, much in the same vein as the Tanker chapter and Virtuous missions from MGS 2 and 3 respectively. The problem was it launched this retailed for full price, with a max of about 2 hours of content and optional missions tacked on after finishing the main campaign. This was pretty shocking to players because they'd come to expect full-fledged releases from a Kojima production, and releasing what seemed like a $50 demo didn't sit well with fans or critics. Sadly, Ground Zeroes never really shook its stigma, and the discourse around it was focused on the controversy of Konami charging full price for a souped-up demo, which in and of itself is a real shame, as Ground Zeroes is a fantastic introduction to how Kojima Productions had streamlined the mechanics of MGS, and further expanded on the overall design with that patented Kojima quirkiness. Not to mention, this was all running on a game engine built specifically for this game that created fantastic visuals. The Fox engine really was impressive, but all its achievements, as well as Kojima Productions, had been cast in a shadow of doubt and distrust. One that, by extension, fell onto Phantom Pain. Was it possible that Ground Zeroes was a warning for how little we'd find in Metal Gear Solid 5 proper? A question that wouldn't be answered until Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain was a critical success and crushed any and all doubts that Ground Zeroes may have created. MGS 5 was more agreeable to critics than a bacon double cheeseburger from Burger King is to me, with its crisp bacon, its succulent beef. Oh yeah. The interesting thing though, Metal Gear Solid 5 is not a finished game. This is without a doubt Konami's worst kept secret, as the existence of a cut chapter has been known for a while. The thing is, when I say it's not finished, I'm not talking about how early access games are unfinished. This game's actual final chapter, as well as a few other plot threads, are left dangling. Now, because of this, Phantom Pain ranks lower in terms of the overall fandom, which again probably relates to my earlier point that MGS has always had a huge emphasis on the story, and to suddenly disregard that for what seems to be the last Metal Gear is a little strange. Especially when you realise that it only has one strong female protagonist. That's another thing missing. Strong female protagonists. I mean, look at all these strong female protagonists. Yep, nothing weird and uncomfortable about this. Especially when you remember how many of these people are abuse and trauma victims. So why do I love this game? Is it because Kojima makes up for the lack of strong female protagonists with one who thinks a bikini counts as combat fatigues and can't speak? Real talk, Hideo, my man, is everything okay at home? Because this seems like a cry for help. If you've seen my previous video on open world versus sandbox games, you know that my philosophy is that good gameplay can outshine the weaker aspects of a game, such as a lacking narrative. And in the case of MGS5, the gameplay doesn't just outshine the story, it fucking eclipses it. So the complaint that Phantom Pain's story is too ensconced in the series' narrative rings true for the gameplay mechanics. The difference is that this is actually a positive for those mechanics rather than a hindrance like in the case of the story. All the functions have appeared in previous games. Soldier collecting debuted in Portable Ops, and Mother Base as well as Fulton Extraction was first seen in Peace Walker, alongside the game being broken into selectable missions, rather than being one unbroken event like the other numbered games. The reason the gameplay feels fresh rather than derivative of the other games is due to how refined it all is. Snake finally controls like a stealth master rather than a human-shaped tank. Mother Base was back in full force, and unlike in Peace Walker, you could actually walk around it and trigger various special events, like a cute birthday surprise for Snake, character interactions that help expand the brother-in-arms angles of the game, and even... Oh, come on, Kojima! As you progress through the game, you'll collect more soldiers and earn GMP, this game's currency. This allows you to develop more equipment and tools for Snake. A quick thing I want to note, because it's super important to why I think MGS5 is amazing, is the economy. You see, most games which include a cash-based system, or any currency sort of thing, kind of miss the mark with how to properly distribute cash. For example, in Assassin's Creed 2, money is ridiculously easy to obtain, and some missions designed for the explicit purpose of granting you capital are the least efficient way to earn it. Not to mention the potential things to spend money on quickly become obsolete when you realize you can also gain weapons and better armor from side quests, or that the best equipment in the game can be purchased for a relatively small amount, making currency less of an important resource and more of a useless hurdle when upgrading to better equipment. However, Phantom Pain counters this by having the GMP earned from missions be just enough to develop a handful of gadgets, but not so little that you really have to grind for it. Later on, you'll need to develop other platforms from Mother Base dedicated to certain tasks to help Snake. These include R&D, medical, combat, communications, and intel. Each of these are given their own Mother Base platforms, which you can travel to and are populated by your recruited soldiers. Not to mention, price-wise, they're one of the most expensive and time-consuming things you can develop, with arguably the greatest payoff: more space for recruits, increasing the potential of Mother Base overall. But it's also connected to probably the most impressive aspect of the game, and the reason as to why I love this game so much. You've probably heard the term gameplay loop before, usually in terms of a looter shooter or MMO. Traditionally, it goes a little something like this: take part in a mission, raid, or quest. Kill a boss, get loot, repeat in case said drop is not to your satisfaction. Wait for new event, repeat steps. Now, if there are any Monster Hunter fans in the audience, this doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world. Grinding on a Rathalos to gain enough of its body to create a better sword, to then grind on another monster to gain a pair of slacks, is essentially the meat and potatoes of the game. But I'd argue that's less of a loop and more of a series of steps that becomes a loop when a criteria is not met. You see, if you didn't get the drops you wanted, you repeat again from step 1. It becomes a loop once you fulfill your own criteria, be it acquiring a certain piece of equipment, resources, or levels. But when you look at Metal Gear Solid 5, a clear and present loop reveals itself that doesn't just follow a predetermined curve, but could be arranged in any particular order. Much like a circle, there's no predetermined start point, unlike the loops of the previously mentioned games, which have a defined step 1. So as I mentioned before, the game allows you to kidnap soldiers and convince them to join Diamond Dogs. Every soldier has a rating in the 6 divisions of Mother Base between E and S++. These soldiers are all encountered on the 2 maps, and can be encountered in both scripted missions or the more freeform side ops. However, in order to recruit them, you have to put yourself in potentially more confrontational or dangerous situations, meaning you either get better at scouting enemy territory, get versed in handling enemy encounters, or gain a deeper understanding of how to utilize your arsenal. The core concept is that you assign soldiers to divisions where they are best suited. You got someone good in combat? Assign them there. These soldiers' skills then allow you to send them on outer ops to earn GMP separate to Snake's, allowing for 2 sources of income to optimize your cash flow. There's also a chance they'll recruit more soldiers, which can be used to further optimize and expand how you approach the game. So the loop is, play missions, get soldiers, get money, develop better tools. Not quite. GMP is used for more than just developing tools. It's also used to maintain your troops, meaning if you have too much overhead, you can go into the red, forcing you to sell off your own mercs, or ideally, forcing you into more missions, either performing the scripted missions or the smaller smash grab side ops. Interestingly enough, some side ops involve you extracting key targets, be they POWs or skilled enemy soldiers, meaning you're being paid to add to your own forces, and these targets more often than not have decent stats to add to your divisions. So by taking part in these missions to replenish cash, you're gaining more soldiers who in turn allow you to develop better gear, which in turn allows for missions to have more options to complete them or enhance your own abilities, like being able to mark more targets with your scope and even see enemy stats. This in turn allows you to cherry pick your recruits so as to not oversaturate Mother Base with subpar soldiers, which in turn staves off your overspending again. So that's where the interconnectivity ends, right? Nope. Because now you have a deeper understanding of the map, meaning that not only does your equipment allow you to approach situations with more options, but your knowledge of the terrain allows you to understand guard patrols and identify the best way to approach a base. Not only that, but occasionally these bases may hide blueprints for weapons and tools for items you may not be able to craft otherwise. On top of this, enemies will adapt to how you play. Like headshots, they wear helmets now. Sneak around in the night, the guards now all have flashlights or worse, thermal goggles. But wait, remember the missions you can send troops on? These can actually involve disrupting the chain of supply of the enemy equipment so as to not alter your gameplay style. So let's consult the loop. By playing the game you earn GMP, or you can earn soldiers. This in turn allows you to develop better tools, which allows you to more efficiently gain more troops to make more GMP. To further develop Mother Base, allowing you to recruit more soldiers to gain more GMP, which in turn streamlines the gameplay proper. Or, by recruiting soldiers, you increase the capabilities of Mother Base, making the game easier, allowing you to earn more GMP, to upgrade equipment and play the game in a more streamlined manner. Unlike the loops of something like Monster Hunter, which have a defined beginning, there's a case to be made about where exactly Phantom Pain's loop begins. And unlike in those other games, the loops and endpoints can also be left to you about which aspect of the game you're trying to improve. It creates this fantastic sense of interconnectivity. All the game's systems, from soldier collecting, base building, and missions, have a true sense of cohesion, and no activity is more or less important than any other. Regardless of how you spend your time, it's not being wasted. MGS5 may have one of the most confused narratives of the series, which is saying a lot, but it has, in my opinion, one of the greatest and most addictive gameplay loops in any game I've ever played. And this isn't something a lesser team could have accomplished. Metal Gear Survive! For anyone to consider MGS5 anything less than a technical masterpiece is a real shame. While it sucks we'll never get a definitive ending to Kojima's last Metal Gear game, to paint Phantom Pain as any lesser to any of the other games without noting its technical mastery is the true tragedy of this unfinished masterpiece. And if you haven't played it and have made it sound interesting, please check it out. Or you can just kind of be creepy and stare quiet while she's in the shower. Hey, it's Kevin. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Luckily, this one came together a lot faster than the Sandbox one, which you can actually watch somewhere on screen there. You could also subscribe to the channel, maybe leave a like, a dislike, tell me what you liked about the video, what you didn't like, maybe what you want to see from me in the future. I've actually got a few videos planned, one on Persona 5, one on the Outer Worlds, and one that's a bit more broad on remakes in general. Yeah, if you want to suggest one, maybe leave it down in the comments, or, you know, tweet at me. My Twitter should be in there. I also have a podcast called Nostalgia Horrors where we review a movie every week. So maybe check that out if you like the sound of my voice for whatever reason. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Stay safe. I love you.